Okay, so if you remember early in the chapter 1 of Romans, he's talking about the good news and the power of the gospel, right? Then he transitions, in wanting to share the gospel and wanting to get a harvest. He transitions from there to now he's going to talk about the wrath of God. And it's interesting that that's what he wants to do. He wants us to learn about the wrath of God. So, every time Paul writes something, you got to ask, why are you telling us this? Right? Well, he's telling us this because he wants us to learn about the wrath of God. Wow. I just got an update, I guess, on whiteboards. Okay. I'm going to try it. Let's try this. I don't know what happened.
There you go.
Okay. You guys see it?
Yeah.
All right. Hopefully we'll be able to work this out. I haven't practiced this new thing yet, so we'll see.
Oh.
Anyway, the wrath of God, right? We're looking at God in heaven. Oh my goodness, this is new for me, guys. So God in heaven, and we're talking about earth. You want to talk about earth or the world, and the relationship between God in heaven and we, the people who are living on earth. And as we acknowledge the fact that on earth, it consists of Jews and non-Jews, which are the Gentiles. So in chapter 1, he says the wrath of God is being revealed against all the godlessness and wickedness of man. It's in verse 18. So Romans 1:18. Do you guys see names moving around?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
I
about
don't know
it.
why it's doing that.
No
Michael-
writing on the board.
Michael
Whoever is
Garvey,
writing it.
Can you see it now?
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
Yeah, I see your name.
Yeah.
But
I don't see
You
any
see-
writing on the board.
you don't see any writing?
No,
I
sir.
can see one.
No,
I can see her.
we
see
can
God.
we can see the drawings and the writings, but I see
can
some
see the
names
writing.
like Michael Garvey.
Princess.
Okay.
Oh,
So
you can-
ignore why the names are, I don't know why the names are there, but ignore that.
If the
How
pointer,
about,
oh, it's gone.
let me try it again.
Gone. Yeah.
Yeah, let me try it again.
If our own pointer goes to the whiteboard, then our name would be there.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay, now you see the whiteboard, right?
Yes,
Yes.
much better.
Okay, got to start all over again. You got to think about the world.
Looking good, Pastor Bert.
Okay. Thanks, John. And then in the world, you have Jews and Gentiles. So Paul is communicating a general perspective of the world. And if you talk about the whole world, it consists of Jews and non-Jews, which are the Gentiles. Everybody agrees with that, right?
Right.
You're either a Jew or a Gentile. Now in Romans 1:18, it says the wrath of God is being revealed against all the godlessness of man. So we're talking about God's wrath. So the wrath of God. So this is a characteristic in learning about God and his wrath. What does wrath mean again?
Displeasure.
Dislike.
Anger.
Yeah.
Anger.
So, okay, I'll put in
Distraction.
displeasure.
Yeah, anger.
Distraction.
Okay, so displeasure. We're talking about the anger, a passionate,
Hot.
hot, passionate, hot anger,
Punishment. Maybe
and
not.
therefore, yeah, punishment is part of it. So you see the layers of definition. It's hot anger, punishment. And you
Passion.
guys have those feelings, right?
Yeah.
Right.
When you see injustice going on in the world, when you see wrongdoing in the world, right?
Right. Right.
Don't you
Injustice.
get angry when you see innocent people get killed?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Don't you get angry when crimes are being committed and people are getting away with it?
Yep.
Yes.
So all these things that are going on in the world, God is angry,
Yep.
and he's revealing it, that God is angry about those things.
Yep.
And there is punishment, and there is death, and there are some who say, yeah, God's wrath results in death, results in punishment, definitely, right? And it's not limited to one or the other. It's just God's expression of his wrath, which is his anger, hot, passionate anger. He's not happy. And so with that understanding about God's wrath, the whole world now has to respect the fact that God is the God who is angry. And it's constant, because in this world, there's always evil everywhere you turn.
Yep.
When you look at the whole world, so everywhere around the world, there is wickedness and evil. And we talked about that, how people suppress the truth because they want to continue in their evil, how people don't want to worship the creator. Instead, they want to worship the creation. And that's in our previous class. But now we're talking about how God is showing us from heaven, right? So this is all in the heavenly realm, how God in heaven. So in heaven, right? God is revealing. He's revealing his wrath. And by God showing us how he is good, he is divine, he is righteous, and he really does hate sin. In fact, in Proverbs, it talks about 6 things that God hates and 7 that are detestable to him.
Yeah.
Do you know number 1 on the list of hate?
Pride.
Arrogance and pride.
Yeah.
That's right. So a haughty look is the word. It's a haughty eyes. And then the next thing is tongue that tells
Lying.
lies.
Yeah.
And then a heart that devises evil. And then hands that shed innocent blood. And then a false witness. And then a person who causes division among brothers.
I forgot about it, Pastor. What is that? Proverbs what?
Chapter 6. Those are the 6 things that God hates, 7 that are detestable to him. Since you asked, I'll give you the verse. It's in Proverbs chapter 6. 6 things that God hates, 7 that are detestable to him. Verse 16, 17, 18, and 19. I might as well read it. There are 6 things the Lord hates, 7 that are detestable to him. Haughty eyes, which is a proud, arrogant look, right? A lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked schemes, feet that are quick to rush into evil, a false witness who pours out lies, a man who stirs up dissension among brothers. And since God hates those things, would you agree? God is not happy with those things. He's angry about the fact that these things are in the world. And he's revealing his wrath from heaven, his anger towards it, his displeasure towards it, and his desire to punish it and even bring death. That's why we have sin and death in the world, right? That's why there's death in the world. Not everybody's dead. If God was going to be punishing every single person who commits these type of sins, all of us would be dead. There would be no life on earth because
Yeah.
there is no one righteous, not
Yeah.
even one. Remember in Romans chapter 3, there's no one righteous, not even one. Okay? So the fact that these men suppress the truth by their wickedness, and then what happened? They reject the creator, and instead they worship the creation. We went through this yesterday. Verse 21, we went through this yesterday too. Romans 1:21, for although they knew God, they neither glorified him as God nor gave thanks to him, but their thinking became futile and their foolish hearts were darkened. Verse 22, although they claimed to be wise, they became fools and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images made to look like mortal man and birds and animals and reptiles. So all that is what we covered yesterday. And all these things tell us that God's wrath is being revealed because he is letting the world know he's against these things. Or Paul is letting us know that God is against these type of things. These are the sins that God is against. But he's not finished. Because man wants to worship the creation instead of the creator, what commandment in the Bible is being broken? Does anybody know what commandment in the Bible is being broken when man is worshiping the creation instead of the creator?
Idolatry.
Number one.
Idolatry. Thou shalt not.
It's number 2,
Thou shalt have
idolatry.
no other God
Oh.
before me.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so worshiping other gods, but specifically worshiping images, right? And the images in this case are mortal man, birds. I worship the eagles, animals. I worship, the lion.
The dog.
This is the year of the dog, whatever, right? And then and reptiles.
Hey, Pastor, how about if you have a picture of Jesus Christ? Is that also
Yeah.
idolatry?
That's
Yes.
debatable.
Okay.
This is where it gets a little more complicated because God knows your heart. There are reasons why people are worshiping the picture of Jesus, okay, and statues. There's more than one reason. Some think it's really Jesus. This is really Jesus, So if I'm gonna commit a sin, I turn the Jesus statue, turn it around so it'll face the wall and not look at my sin. That's one thinking process, which obviously we know there's something wrong with that. But there's also the other reason, which is what the early church wanted to do, was to teach about Christianity in the beginning, and they created these images to help worshipers identify with Christianity. And so these things are intended to be teaching tools. They're intended to be reminders of Jesus and everybody connected with Jesus, the apostles, Mary, and so forth. And so if it's honoring those statues in such a way that it's helpful reminder of the message of Christianity, God knows your heart.
Pastor, I heard.
But if you go too far and turn it into an idol where you're worshiping it as a creation rather than the creator, then you've gone too far. Okay, does that answer your question?
Pastor, I heard.
You, Pastor.
Go ahead, Angelita.
I heard that you can like the chain. It hasn't have a pinako. You don't have to show that Jesus is it's on the cross, but they should be no more no
A cross without Jesus?
yeah.
That's one of those debatable things, right? Are you worshiping the creation or are you worshiping the creator?
The creator, right?
Right. So if there's a cross, is that a creation or is that a creator?
I think
Creation.
That's
Somebody
a creation.
created
If you
that.
see a statue of Jesus, is that a creation or is that the creator?
The creation.
So, put that in your mind that you're either worshiping the creation or the creator. And that's what people are doing when they get too caught up in what they see and they like to worship what they see instead of worshiping the invisible God. And God does not want you to worship the creation. Everybody's clear about that, right? That's the second commandment. You shall not make any idols. So by doing that, you can separate the difference between worshiping the creator and worshiping the creation. And that's what Paul is pointing out. People worship the creation. And obviously, God doesn't want us to worship a creation. And so let's move on. But so God doesn't want people to worship the creation. It's a violation and it's breaking the second commandment. You shall have no idols. But people are doing it anyway, regardless of whether they're Jews or Gentiles. They have their own statues out there or whatever that they want to worship. And it's beyond statues, beyond necklaces. And this is probably deep, but it's also the God you have in your mind. There are some people who have created their God in their mind.
oh my God, really?
Because in their mind, they identify their God to be like this and like that,
Oh.
not like this and not like that. So the God in their mind, right? They refuse to learn about the true God because they have their God in their mind and they put their God in a box. So that's an idol too. Okay, so this is a creation in their mind. That's a little deeper, but if you pay attention, people have that thinking about their God. My God is not like this. My God is like this. Well, you're supposed to respect the God who reveals himself in the Bible. And right now, my God is a loving God. He's never angry, right? No, this God is angry. He has a wrath. He has a hot passion in being angry, and he has displeasure, and he wants to punish, evil and wickedness. Okay? That's the God that reveals himself in the Bible. And if you have a God in your mind that you created, my God's not like that, well, you're worshiping your idol. Okay, so as we continue on, it says, but because of your stubbornness, where am I? Where am I?
24.
24. Okay. Okay, therefore, okay, because people are so set in worshiping their own God, their idols, their creation, right? Whether it's man or animals or birds or reptiles, right? Because that's going on, look what it says. Because of this, remember, what is this? They exchanged the truth of God for a lie, and they want to worship and serve created things rather than the Creator, who is forever praised. Amen. See, they'd rather worship created things rather than the Creator. And because of this, what does God do? He gives them over to shameful lusts. Now we're talking about lust and shameful lust. I'm going to need a new whiteboard for this one. Okay. We're going to talk about shameful lust. Okay. So, you guys know what lust is. And again, if you have a different translation, we'll work with that. But mine is shameful lust.
Okay.
First of all, do you guys know what lust is?
Yeah.
What's a definition of lust?
Like,
Lasciviousness.
What's that?
Lasciviousness.
I don't even know what lasciviousness means. I have to look it up in a dictionary.
It's
Uncontrolled sexual desire.
uncontrolled sexual desire.
Is that what it says in your translation?
No, in
In the
my
dictionary.
dictionary.
Lust means lasciviousness, and lascivious is uncontrolled sexual desire.
Yes.
Wow. I just looked at lust as desire.
I think it's a craving for things that God doesn't want us to crave. It could be sexual, it could be money, it could be a number of different things that you shouldn't crave, that God doesn't want us to have in our lives.
Yeah. So
It depends on the cravings.
yeah, it's desire. Okay, is everybody okay with desire? And the desires, that's where coveting is also the 10th commandment, which is a sin, which is also desire, desiring the wrong things. But lust does have the sexual component, right? You guys understand that, right?
Yes.
And because it has a sexual component, some of those lustful thoughts are shameful. Now we're getting into shameful kinds of lust. Okay? Shameful kinds of lust. Now, when we're talking about shameful kinds of lust, do you know what I always go to whenever I think of shameful kinds of sexual desires? I always go to Leviticus chapter 18.
oh, yeah.
So who would like to read that? Do I have a reader?
What verse?
Starting in verse 1. Who wants to read that? You, Stephanie?
Okay.
Okay.
Unlawful marriages and unlawful lusts.
What's that?
18 verse 1. And the Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, I am the Lord your God. After the doings of the land of Egypt wherein you dwelt, shall you not do, and after the doings of the land of Canaan, whither I bring you, shall you not do, neither shall you walk in their ordinances. You shall do my judgments and keep my ordinances.
Stephanie? Okay, Stephanie got lost in the connection.
I can
Is
Verse
that
continue.
Mother?
Was
I
that
Sorry?
I can
Verse
continue, Pastor.
Princess?
Yeah.
Oh,
Go
sorry,
ahead
I
and
skipped.
hello,
Sorry about that.
Stephanie.
Yeah, she's back.
Okay, verse 5.
Are you
You
do you
shall,
have a good connection? Because if you keep breaking up, it's gonna disrupt the whole flow of the teaching.
I don't know, I'm just reading.
Yeah, I know, but you're breaking up in the connection, and you just broke up. We'll try it one more time, okay? But this is where God
There.
is giving the law.
She's lost
to-
again.
Okay, God is giving the law to the children of Israel. And giving them these laws, they are referred to as sexual relations that are unlawful to God. Okay? Lust, right? We're talking about lust. And the fact that God is saying the Egyptians are doing these things, I don't want you to do what the Egyptians are doing. The Canaanites are doing these things, and I don't want you to copy the Canaanites either. Okay? So God is saying, you're my people, basically, and you got to conduct yourself with these proper sexual practices, and these are not allowed. Another way of saying it is God saying, don't desire these things.
Mm-hmm.
Don't what is it? Don't desire these things. Don't fantasize about these things.
Don't crave for it.
Yeah.
Don't think about it.
Well, it's a desire. So am I spelling fantasize wrong? Anyway, you know what it is. Desire, fantasy. And so the fact that these are desires, and God is talking about shameful lust, and here you are thinking, lusting, desiring these sexual desires. And here we go. No one is to approach any close relative, verse 6, to have sexual relations. Having sex with a close relative.
Mm-hmm.
That's forbidden. Okay? A close relative. I mean, that could be, I don't know, close relative could be, well, just anybody close, blood related, right?
The son
Yeah.
of another, that's the bird. The son
Was
is
Kissing
dead.
cousins.
Yeah.
They find their cousins in the family reunion.
So
But
what
they say,
happened with,
Pastor, in rich families, they do that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I
Pastor,
mean,
what
there you can go all over the map, but I don't want to get stuck on it because it'll tell us more details. Do not
Oh.
dishonor your father by having sexual relations with your mother.
I just forget, but what happened with those two daughters that raped their father
Right.
in the
That
Bible?
happened. That
That's a
happened
good
in
story of Noah.
Genesis.
Just to
Okay.
give
Lot.
birth.
That's Genesis. We're in Leviticus. So that is daughters sleeping with their father. That's definitely
Sin.
wrong. Sleeping with your mother. You're not allowed to sleep with your mother. Even if, okay, moving on. Do not have sexual desires with your sister, verse 9. See, so if you're lusting after your sister, you're lusting and desiring your sister, and then you're fantasizing over your sister. Well, guess what? God knows all that is going on in your heart. Your
Like
desires,
the son of David.
your fantasy, that's right. It's all there. So your desires, your fantasy, okay? And we're talking about lust. So we're just highlighting the fact that, these are desires people have, right? People have these desires. And you can't be saying, I never have those desires, right? Well, if you don't have one, you have some of them. Maybe not all of them, but some of them. But do not have sexual relations with your father's wife, which is your stepmother. You could say, oh, my dad married a very young woman and she's really beautiful.
Uh-huh.
And now you have this lust for her. You desire her. You're having fantasies about her because your father is out of town.
Uh-oh.
Tell your dad to divorce her.
That's what we're talking about here. Shameful lust. I'm not going to get too caught up on it because we can spend all day on these. Do not have sexual relations with your son's daughter. My daughter-in-law. Right? Don't have those desires. Don't have those fantasies. Where we really deal with today is do not have sexual relations with, let's see. We can go down the list, but the ones that we really see being promoted today, do not lie with a man as one lies with a woman. What is that about? Do not lie with a
Homosexuality.
man. That's verse 22. Okay, with all these lists of sexual acts, relations, somebody say, oh, the Bible's got to be more up to date. Come on, man, get on with the times. Hey, the Bible's been talking about this since Moses and since Genesis. Do not lie with a man as one lies with a woman. That is detestable. That's part of the list of shameful lust and desires. Okay? And so if you, because we're dealing with LGBTQ, right? If you are lusting and having a desire for another man, fantasizing to sleep with a man like you would sleep with a woman, what is God going to do? According to this, what's God going to do with you?
You get cut off.
In dealing with his wrath, because we're talking about his anger, right? His hot, angry passion. You know what he's going to do if you have that fantasy and that desire because of these shameful lusts? You know what he does? According to Romans chapter 1?
Cut you out of his life.
No, you got to read
Hot
it.
coals of fire.
What's that?
Hot
You get cut
coals of
off.
fire.
I didn't hear you.
Hot coals of fire.
Nope, that's not it. You guys got to read it.
You get cut off from the people. Verse 29.
It says this. It says, because of this, where
Shall be
one
cut off
man
from-
is lusting and desiring after another man, or a woman after another woman, which is not God's design, and you fall so much in love with another man that you worship that man because you love that man. I have such strong feelings, right? The feelings for another man. So you desire the other man, you fantasize over the other man, and you have feelings for the other man because you treat that man like your idol, and you say to that man, I want to sleep with you like I would sleep with a woman, I'd rather sleep with you. What happens? Read it, verse 26.
They get cut off from one another.
Oh, let me read it. Sorry. Because of
That's
this,
why God abandoned
what is
them
it? Because of
to their
this,
sinful desire.
Nor any stranger that sojourns.
hold on. I'm in chapter 1, verse 26. I will read to you my version. It says, because of this, God gave them over to shameful lusts. Are you guys getting that?
Pastor,
Yeah.
where
Back to
are you?
Romans.
Romans chapter 1, verse 26. Read your
Oh.
translation, someone. So
I
you know
can
I'm
read
not going.
mine. I can read mine, Pastor. NLT,
Go
the
ahead.
Living Translation.
Go ahead.
Romans 1, verse 26. This is why God abandoned them to their shameful desires. Even the women turn
Okay.
against
Okay.
the natural way
okay. So
to
what
have
we're
sex.
looking at in your translation is God. What does God do?
Abandon.
He abandons them, basically leaves them. Other translations, how does it read?
The New King James Version. For this
Go
reason,
ahead.
for this reason, God gave them up to vile passions. For
Okay.
even
So
women
gave them up.
gave them up.
Gave them up. And we're not talking about just gay people. We're talking about all of you
Uh-oh.
who have these
Hmm.
shameful lusts, shameful
Aren't you
desires,
forgiven?
shameful fantasy. We're talking about the whole world, remember? Right?
All right.
And so God gave them up. It says, okay, if you want that man so bad and you're not trying to control your feelings, your fantasies, and your desires, my wrath is to say, then I will give you over. I'm going to give you over to this. So now you're this. You're now caught up in your shameful lust. Man and man, woman and woman. That's God's wrath being revealed. Have you ever thought about God's wrath being revealed in that way?
Thanks God, we are not like them.
Thank God we're saved,
Yes.
right? But I've heard enough of Christians struggle. So I'm not going to pretend we're better than anybody. I'm just acknowledging the fact that God saves us from these type of things. But the fact is, if you have these shameful lusts and shameful desires, what God does to show his wrath, remember, because this is what God's wrath is all about, his wrath being revealed. You want to see God's wrath revealed? He says, I'm going to hand you over to your desires. I'm going to let you have it. You want it? You're going to have it. Go ahead and have all these sexual relations with the wrong people, with the wrong practice. And that's what God's wrath is revealed.
Pastor, maybe HIV?
We're not there yet, but yeah, that's going to be
Kindly
discussed.
raise your hand, please.
Okay, Princess, you have your hand raised. Go ahead.
Pastor, with regards to this, we're talking about the sexual thing. Is it the fault of the person if if he's a guy and has a feeling of a girl? Of course, if he's got the feeling of a girl, I'm talking about the exchanges of sexes. Is it his
The
fault to
transgender?
yeah, the LGBTQ,
Yeah.
is the person's fault to become like that? Because the reason why I'm asking, because I've seen my cousin. He's a boy,
Sure.
but as soon as he started walking and like 2 or 3 years old, I
Number
can tell
7,
he's gonna
question
grow
number
up.
13.
Excuse me. I can tell that he will grow up to be a gay, and he is now. He's about 30, yeah, almost 30. So I don't know if it's his fault or it's in his genes. Because if it is in his genes, it's hard to tell that that's a sin for him, right?
Well, that's the debatable issue that we're dealing with in this society. Okay. And the reason why it's a debatable thing in this society is, we have this issue of nurture versus nature. Is it their nature or is it nurture? If a person is feminine, a man is feminine, does that mean automatically he's going to be gay for the rest of his life? That's a debate, right? Or can he be trained to become a man?
They didn't
You're
do
born
it.
a man, you can be
What?
trained to become a man, and so forth and so on. Because we live in a society where we place so much emphasis on feelings and desires. Well, we know every feeling and desire is not something we can always act on. You all agree about that, don't you?
Yes.
You cannot let your feelings dictate your life, especially if you want to kill somebody, right? You cannot let feelings dictate your life. Is like, I hate you and I'm gonna hurt you. Well,
Lord have
there's something to
mercy.
be said about your lusts, your desires, your feelings, and your fantasies. Oh, I wish I can choke him, things like that. When they're out of control, God's wrath is going to be revealed. And basically, God's way of showing you his wrath is letting you get away with it, or not, or letting you go ahead and do it. You want to kill him so bad? Go ahead and kill him. And then what happens when he gets caught, right? Now he's full of shame. He did the wrong thing. And even there's a story of this young man who killed his girlfriend, his fiance, and then he ended up killing himself. Things like that,
Bullshit.
because of the lust.
Yeah.
God gives you over to it. And this is God's wrath being revealed. He lets them, he's just letting everybody do what they want. He abandons you to go ahead and do it. He leaves you and abandons you. He's not going to stop you from doing it. And he's giving you over to it. That's
It
God's
just
wrath.
it just gets worse nowadays, because before, a long time ago, our parents' era, you don't see gay people or
Yeah, because it was kept
they
in check. They were
yeah,
they
they
were
try.
correcting those desires. You cannot,
Yeah, they tried
you
to
know,
hide it. They tried to
sure.
really correct themselves. But nowadays, oh my God, they
It's
still have,
gotten worse. Now they want to teach
yeah,
our children to be confused about sexual orientation and confused about sexual identity. We're in a confusing world, and that's God's wrath.
I know. And the
That's God's.
government
This
is
is this
allowing
is why we're studying Romans 1, because God says, even their women exchange natural relations for unnatural ones,
yeah,
right?
yes.
So the women are supposed to naturally be with men, but now we have women wanting to be with
Marrying,
women.
even marrying, my God.
Of course. I mean, that this is God's wrath. Okay, you want it so bad, I'm abandoning you and giving you over to these things. Verse 27, in the same way, the men also abandoned natural relations with women. I don't want to marry a woman, I want to marry a man. And they were inflamed with lust. I desire you, you're a man, and I desire you, and you're a man. We both desire each other. We're both men. And they're inflamed with lust for one another. Men committing indecent acts. Do we have to really talk about indecent acts
No.
that men do with each
Exposure.
other? Okay,
No.
we're not. But Paul says, men. Why is Paul out showing this? Because you know what? This was going on during the time of Paul's day. This is very common. You heard about Greeks having, making, having homosexual relationships.
The
Greeks
kids? The
with
kids?
young Greek boys, Romans with young Roman boys, or vice versa. Let's see. They were inflamed with lust for one another. Men committed indecent acts with other men and received in themselves the due penalty for their perversion. And this is where some have said, see, you'll get STD, sexual transmitted disease.
No,
And that's
thank
where
you.
AIDS is usually becoming, some of those who said, yeah, if you have sexual transmitted disease with men to men, it can
Yikes.
produce, the due penalty for their perversion. It's a sexually transmitted disease. And, that's what we had to deal with, right? And that's what we see happening when men are free to have sex with as many men as they want. Bathhouses. I grew up in San Francisco. We'd hear about bathhouses in the San Francisco, Castro, things like that. It's like, yeah, because over there they were having free sex. Mike, you had a thought?
Yes, Pastor. When Princess talked about her cousin, it was so much. It rings true with what was in my brother's life. From the moment I've known my brother, he was effeminate, and I mean this is at a very, very young age, and it really it destroyed his life. And what I'm thinking that my concern is that God gave them over to their passions, but I've always been so concerned about his salvation. I've talked to him, and he ended up on the streets of San Francisco homeless, and I don't know. And I've talked to him, and he believed in God and Jesus, but he just couldn't get over that passion for other men, and I don't know what to think about it. That's always been hard on in my mind, and as to what happened to my brother as far as his eternal life.
Yeah. And this is where we're talking about lust, right?
Yes.
Now, all of us have different kinds of lust, shameful lust. It's all about desires, or your fantasies or your feelings. And it can go all over the place, because we read it in Leviticus. If you want to continue to read those different kinds of desires and behaviors, sexually speaking, it's all there. And God says the Egyptians are doing this, the Canaanites are doing this, but you're not to do these. So God puts the boundary with sexual relations. Now, does that mean everybody's going to be perfect? Of course not. But God has provided the boundaries. And the most obvious command, besides all the list of sexual feelings that you're dealing with in Leviticus 18, the obvious command is in the 7th commandment, which is, thou shalt not commit adultery. So even though you're married, and I was ministering to this man who's working with a woman, and he's married. And he says, I'm falling in love with this woman at work. Yeah, you have those desires, those fantasies, those feelings. But what does the Bible says? Don't commit adultery. See? And so it becomes an issue of choice.
It just didn't
Some
seem
say
to
I was
be
born this way. Well,
Yeah.
God doesn't look at it that way. God looks at it as a choice. That's why the list of sexual sins are all choices.
Yeah,
But it gets
definitely
confusing because the different desires that are brought up, or the different behaviors, they are a result of feelings and fantasies and desires. So you can't just say, well, I was born this way. I was born to like my mom. I was born to like, my auntie, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So yes, this is the struggle that we have in the flesh, because God is revealing that these things are wrong. These are shameful to be lusting. There on that list, there's a desire to have sex with animals. That's why you could really get into all these desires and actions. But these are shameful lusts that God is making clear. If you're under his wrath, which is the whole world, right? I'm handing you over. Now, the fact is, if you turn to God with your shameful lusts, your shameful desires and shameful fantasies, if you go to God about these desires, right? What's God going to do with you? Based on what we learn in Hebrews.
Well, if you're sincere, he'll forgive you, and as long as you change your ways.
He'll help you.
Yes.
And I don't know how long it's going to take to help you, but he'll help you. That's what we learn in the book of Hebrews. He sympathizes with your weaknesses. You can have a conversation with God that says, God, I'm really trying to stop this desire and this fantasy for, so-and-so, but I'm having a hard time. Well, Jesus can sympathize with that, and he'll help you with that. Yeah, but I want it now. But, God's way is different. You might have to struggle with this for the rest of your life.
Well, he did.
What we end up having in this world is people are promoting this like it's normal. It's okay for you to desire these things that God says is wrong, And that's where we're at right now. Okay, guys?
Okay.
Was that a quick 1 hour?
Yeah.
Ophelia has a question, Pastor.
Oh, is there another one who has a question? Go ahead.
Ophelia.
Ophelia, go ahead.
Yeah, Pastor, the more I'm getting scared about my grandson, because he is an atheist. Aside from that, because he's gay, he's living with a man. So I don't know how my prayer can really help him.
Well, you just continue to pray and believe that God will answer your prayer. And that's why I sent you those videos about gay people coming to faith in Jesus.
Yeah.
See, so atheists coming to faith in Jesus, and those kind of things are just, it's not like they're such terrible sinners and you're not. You understand?
Yeah.
Don't look at it like, oh, they're all evil sinners. I'm not. No, all of us are in this condition. This is the world that we're living in, where, you know, in this world, yeah, the Jews and the Gentiles are all under God's wrath.
Yeah.
You were under God's wrath. I was under God's wrath
Mm-hmm.
until Jesus. See? And so, you know, if you're guilty of all these wrong, shameful lusts and desires and feelings, and fantasies, right? I still love you. And yes, God can judge you and punish you and have the attitude towards you that says, okay, I'm going to let you do what you want. So I do what I want. I now have AIDS, for example, sexual transmitted diseases. Now what am I going to do? Now is the time to turn to God. God, help me. God, heal me. God, save me. Right? I'm committing adultery. The husband just shot me in my heart and I'm dying. God, forgive me for committing adultery. Will God forgive you?
God forbid.
God will forgive every sin. So, yeah, if your shameful lust takes you too far out to the point of death, then yes, God will still forgive you if you call on him. Right? Everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. Jesus said every sin will be forgiven of men. So we're never going to give up encouraging people to call on the Lord. But you know, if you find yourself in a terrible mess, I'm in jail, right? And I'm in trouble. Well, time to call on the name of the Lord. You know, one man was having sex with an animal. That was a shameful lust, a shameful desire that's found in Leviticus 18. Now he's caught by the police. What are you going to do now? Call on the Lord. He'll save you if you call on him. This woman, oh man, this is recent news. She was caught masturbating at the beach, and the police arrested her for doing that. You know, indecent exposure, I think it's called.
Yeah.
And they put it all on camera, her getting arrested, not her doing it. But she was so ashamed of it, she committed suicide.
Oh my God.
So you just never know what kind of fantasies and feelings and desires, the shameful lusts that are going on in people. And hey, God still loves you, but you better understand God's wrath, his displeasure, and his ability to punish you and, you know, put you in the place where you are receiving his hot anger, passionate, hot anger towards your shameful lust and desires. That's what we're looking at in Romans chapter 1, and how God treats the world. Not just don't just say, oh, I'm not in jail, so I must be okay. No, we're all guilty of that. That's why, remember, in Romans chapter 3, he's taking us to this place where he says, there is no one righteous, not even one. So don't ever get so proud and arrogant you think that they're so evil and you're not. No, we're all in the same boat, and God's wrath is being revealed. Just be glad that Jesus saved us. That's because that's what we have. All right. So let's close, and then I'll hand it over to Manny to play the song tonight.